President Ruto now finds himself in a difficult situation. Why so? The United States feels Kenya has been double dealing them with China. This current situation Kenya faces is no joke. It has political, economic, and military consequences on Kenya. In diplomacy and geopolitics, the consideration that Kenya has been double dealing the United States can be seen as a national security challenge, especially when double dealing with a country that the United States considers, a threat to their national security. Right now, the United States is reviewing Kenya's Non-Nato ally status granted to it June 2024, following Kenya's decision to elevate its diplomatic relations with China, when at the same time bearing the Non-Nato ally status.
Just last month, President Ruto declared that Kenya, a major non-NATO ally, and China are co-architects of a new world order.
The political consequence of the United States reviewing Kenya's major non-NATO ally status are serious, both domestically and globally. Let me break it down what it means politically. Like right now in Kenya here, we're just a few months away from general election. So if the US will view President Ruto to be, so allied to China, that means it is interests in Africa are facing a threat. So that is likely to affect how Kenyan politics will be played, and that definitely will be to Ruto's disadvantage. The US can dig some dirt on President Ruto, ahead of 2027. So President Ruto, perhaps he will have to, say, I am sorry, the United States, please forgive me, and revoke its current, strong diplomatic relations with China. But again, here the decision President Ruto made in defense of his decision to work with China.
We have concluded the high-level conversation with China. They have agreed to a reciprocal arrangement between Kenya and China. They have agreed to remove all the tariffs on our tea, on our coffee, on our avocado, and all other agricultural exports. That, I think, is a major breakthrough for us. We are now finalizing the bilateral instruments, and Lee can give us some progress report on that, so that in the next couple of months, we should be able to take advantage of that huge market. It's partly why I have a bit of a problem with some of our friends, but it is what I must do for Kenya. It's in the best interest of Kenya.
This will also damage or reduce Kenya's bargaining power, especially in Africa. It will downgrade, Kenya's voice in regional security. Also, it has a serious domestic political consequence. Like, people like Gachagua will use that to fuel anti-government narratives. And at the end of it, Ruto's foreign policy, will be under scrutiny, and the opposition would definitely warn Kenyans against Ruto for putting Kenya under threat, especially at this time when people are talking about a new world order. The revocation will also hurt Kenya's geopolitical standing and generally the image as a dependable global player. Just listen to the US Senator who brought, this issue to the Senate, to review Kenya's non-NATO ally status.
Relying on leaders who embrace Beijing so openly is an error. It's time to reassess our relationship with Kenya and others who forge tight bonds with China. And it isn't just an embracement of China, but also the, quote, new world order. And
the US deciding to grant Kenya this non-NATO ally status, definitely economic benefits. First, there was, the issue of investor confidence. This designation definitely was a stamp of US confidence in Kenya. So by removing it, it places, investors in a situation where they will have to doubt Kenya. That will have serious economic consequences on Kenya, with the US withdrawing that confidence in the Kenyan economy. Definitely many investors, many international investors who majorly are actually from the US will withdraw their foreign direct investment. That will put us in a precarious economic situation. Militarily, Kenya was to gain a lot, but given that this status is being reviewed, that will definitely mean that in the event it is revoked, Kenya will not get the necessary military support, especially in modernizing our army and also having that opportunity to work with the US military in various areas. Also access to intelligence. Right now Kenya has that, that opportunity to receive intelligence from the US and all that. So given this status is being reviewed, and if lost, definitely Kenya will be in a terrible position, and I do not know if China will be in a better position to help us navigate this situation. In essence, this review isn't just about one country. It is a litmus test for the US, trust in Africa, Kenya's balancing act in global diplomacy, and whether countries like Kenya can benefit from both East and West without being punished. If revoked, it would politically isolate Kenya, empower China, and possibly reshape African diplomatic alliances in ways the US may not have intended. So this review should be taken so seriously. It's not a joke. If the US feels that Kenya has a very strong balancing act and President Ruto is compromising that, to be honest, it will have a consequence in the 2027 presidential election. I am not lying about that, because you understand how the US operates, especially if it is their way and someone comes in to block, it can have consequences. It may not necessarily punish Kenya, but given that Kenya will be having an election, there's a way the US can play its cards to make sure that finally President Ruto is out of office, to bring in someone, who can work with them and perhaps, revoke the current, or perhaps, minimize the current elevated diplomatic relations with China. Yeah, this is very important, and I hope Kenyans can have this conversation, because it is serious. It's no joke. It's not about just the domestic issues we talk about, like unga and these other basic items, or these other household items. So this is serious, and it can definitely have consequences on Kenya. Let's wait and see how these non-NATO ally status granted to Kenya will pan out. If the review, puts Kenya in a situation where the US doubts Kenya, definitely expect these consequences.